So anyway, I think that was pretty well of the street here. But I feel very strongly about a lot of things you guys are doing, and I was actually a little frightened when just and I talked to Tony, but the more I think about it, the more I can see where there's so many great things that can be done to really get ahead of this whole public consensus thing and turn it around. And I know the next 2 months are going to be really critical for everybody. Tony and I really had a sort of email discussion last night about people that we could probably bring together. Joe and I talked about this at length, and I'd love to see some outreach and action. I think I'll just say this one last thing, that board development is really, really important. I see that you had a meeting with the Essex County Community Foundation, and Wellborn and Julie Bishop are totally fantastic resources to have. This is really important because one thing about CRS when I first came in is all a bunch of artists, great people, so much fun to be with, smart, creative, but they have their lifestyles. They went to their studios in the daytime, they had their kind of friends in the evening, and they were not able to do the advocacy. Either it wasn't in their personalities or it wasn't in their schedule, but it just wasn't part of their program. And you really need to have a board that can really master that aspect of it. Because to be a nonprofit, you have to be advocating all the time. It's like I was saying earlier, in business, you need to be out selling all the time. If money isn't coming in, you're not going to make it. In nonprofit, if you're not advocating all the time, if you're not expressing your mission, if you're not growing your universe of stakeholders, you're just not going to be sustainable. It takes very little time to fall behind the curve in that. And that's something I applaud what you guys are doing, bringing people. I just had a chance to read, Sean Neal's resume. If you can get this guy, jump on him and don't let him go, because he would obviously be fantastic. And there's people at the Pioneer Institution. I know that's a somewhat vilified name because it's so conservative in some respects. But what's interesting about the charter thing is it's got both Republican and Democrat support on a lot of different levels, and there's a huge opportunity there too, as both of these groups seem to move more towards the center. So in collaboration, your board can really help you with that collaboration, with that community-facing part, and also board can help you with governance and a lot of other things that are necessary. Fundraising's not as important right now, but it may become so. And just have advocacy about in politics. CRS never had people talking about politicians before, and you really need to get that. You need to get those people and say, okay, if you're not talking about alternative ways of financing, include us in the conversation, because we can tell you what our budget's going to be and how much we're going to need, and we can deal with that. Be on all these issues that you're getting attacked on. Get aggressive about what your advocacy is going to be and who your advocate's going to be for that. So, not fun. I don't mean to lecture, I really don't. I'd love to hear what everyone's thoughts are, but this meeting is not about me, it's about what you guys are trying to do. So.
Well, I'll just respond. It's wonderful. Your energy is wonderful. I really, I was just sitting here just loving hearing what you're saying, and it feels so right. It feels like where we all want to go, and I think that it's been definitely a hard road. I know our vision, and our early work in trying to contact all a lot of the nonprofits, and not just to get the grant, but to connect. And there was so much positive energy. The excitement was unbelievable until they got intervened. And what's happened now is that excitement is all still there, but it's very quiet. People call me all the time. I got a call from someone the other day who said, "Are you guys going to be opening high school by next year?" It's like, there's I get a lot of that, and I get a lot of real quiet kind
year
of,
after.
just so you know, we're very much in support, but very quiet, because what you went through when you weren't quiet. We've all experienced that as well, that there's a very vicious backlash that has come through. So I think your energy is just lovely to hear that, give us kind of a new boost and getting out there in the community in a positive way. And I think a lot of people are starting to surface again. They were kind of going underground for a long time.
One of the things that I really chime with on what you were saying is
how rich the possibilities are for us to intersect with the Gloucester arts community. And we're quite aware of that. We've had many conversations about that, and the different individual artists and poets and people in Gloucester. The thing that would really, where I think you would really bring a lot to helping us on that is how one makes that organizational in a way. I mean, how one puts a structure on that so that it isn't, it isn't only, we want people calling their artist friends and bringing them to the school, but something that sort of works as both as a school and also as a way to mesh, with the arts in Gloucester in a bigger way. I mean, we had tons of ideas before we got caught up in the Civil War over our opening, and also our struggle to actually just open a real school. We've been talking about, for instance, having storefronts downtown in Gloucester to represent kids' art, but also maybe the art that people who work with our kids do, and different projects like that, through the city, and some help with thinking what structures would we build to do that would be really, really key for us at this point.
I can actually throw a little concretissima out there for you. Bob Hastings, the new executive director of the Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce. I know most people, when they think of Chamber of Commerce, they think of, okay, the car dealer belongs, the banker belongs. Bob Hastings actually had a very, very interesting background where he has mostly moved into places that had pretty considerable urban life, and has actually used the availability of empty storefronts, but nice locations. Mid-Coast Maine, for example, even though there's some very pretty towns like Camden, there were some really knockdown, dragged-out towns that you wouldn't want to spend much time in. He's been very, very, Bob was very visionary about bringing art into those towns. A lot of artists tend to live there because the real estate's inexpensive. It's an inspiring area to be in. And it did have a profound effect on cultural tourism and bringing people in. Bob is trying to do the same thing right now in Gloucester. There's a whole downtown beautification project where they're looking for people to do work. If you've seen the work on the corner of Pleasant and Main that Junie Van Dyke has done with the senior center, where they'll take a huge painting by Hopper and then they'll break it down into little bits, and then each senior will do something, and that gets a terrific response. And the same can be said for when kids do stuff. And frankly, honestly, having tried to persuade the working artists to get involved with this, they're not that interested. I mean, and it's not blasphemy to say that. It's just they don't want to show their stuff, or there may be a question about what the insurance is going to be, or whether or not there's going to be someone there to get a sale or a bid. They want to have more control over their art than just to put it up in the windows of an abandoned building. There are right now 18 abandoned storefronts in Gloucester, so there's plenty of space. This is something that Bob Hastings wants to do. There's a whole committee set up to do this, and actually, I sit on one of the steering committees of the board in the chamber, and we're meeting, I guess it's tomorrow night, this would be a wonderful topic. I mean, I've been trying to say, let's, bring the charter school into this every time I get a chance right now, because I think the more places where you can sort of get your foot in the door and open up and let a little light shine into the community about the whole thing, the more people are going to warm up to the idea. I mean, I would very much like to see this beautiful big hall you have used for a couple of things. I mean, there's no big performing arts space in Gloucester right now. There's the West End Theater, which has a very, very kind of limited functionality. There's Rob Newton's movie place across the street, which is sort of now set up and will only be a movie theater with big comfy chairs. It's not a great performing arts place. There's a lot of potential here to if you were willing to figure out a way to make something happen here, make it happen regularly, you could probably drive a lot of activity through here, but then bringing people in. And,
Just for the facility.
Just for the facility itself, yeah.
Well, that's one thing that we
Yeah.
talked about early on, is I used to work at the Newbury Board, and they have, I think they call it tannery.
Yeah, the tannery, sure, yeah,
Tannery,
exactly.
right?
No,
We
yeah.
need a tannery,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and when I talk to the parents, they're like, this is so awesome, my kid can go to dance class to Buttergun, I don't have to drive home, you know? So it's just this great mecca of arts, and it's just
Yeah.
right all there together.
Parking's easy, it's very central, I mean, those are all not insignificant things as well.
Exactly.
And a nice environment where there are people here all the time. It's not
Right.
like going into the scary section of town someplace in Boston or something.
Right.
And there are people here
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
right, right.
Some of us live here.
Yeah.
No, it's-
But I mean, there are a lot so to your point, Jay, there are a lot of little things that you can do that would, bit by bit, bring people into the fold, and increase the understanding and probably realize that, that I think right now, the whole thing between farmer and the press has just been so isolated, that, I freely tell people that, the superintendent made a tactical and strategic mistake by deciding that he wanted to shut down the charter school. First, he put all his energies into that, and secondly, as a result, he created a chasm within the community that could take years,
Yeah. I do think we have a new superintendent who
Yeah.
is,
I mean, I just
I
think,
do think we have a new superintendent who is, and from what I've heard and read and the small contact that I've had with him, he's really a community builder. And I think it's very exciting to know that there's that potential there, and I know it's interim, but I'm hoping that the energy, will shift.
So in our,
sure, actually, I'm sorry.
What's the process of,
Well, I was going to mention that there's another piece of this that has to do with the probation that we're on.
Yes.
Because in our probation, we're expected to add to the board. It's not clear the number of people that they're talking about when they cited the criteria for the new board membership, call it. But James, from your background, you have a law degree. I think that was one of the requirements. You have financial, corporate finance and investment banking in your background. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm doing the same. And they also mentioned real estate. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the firm was Capstan McCardle, a noted real estate